Good afternoon, everyone. This is Carla Sutter with SYNERGY HomeCare. Thank you all for joining us for this month's webinar on Aging with Purpose, Planning for a Meaningful Retirement. So I always like to start with some definitions, particularly when we're talking about a subject that has really changed over time, so that the definition of where we are today with this same word has really shifted than when this was originally placed in any of the dictionaries. So retirement has always, in the past, been the action or fact of leaving one's job and ceasing to work. It's also all about a withdrawal. In legal terms, it's a withdrawal of a jury, for instance, from the courtroom to decide their verdict. But the idea of withdrawing from something has always been a part of what retirement has always been about. And today, my hope is that at the end of this session, that you will have a different perspective and feel buoyed by the idea of what retirement can be. My assumption is going to be that those who are on the call today are going to be in different places of the retirement plan. There are going to be some of you who are already retired and thinking about what's going well with that and maybe things that you are looking to change or adjust. There's others who are planning for retirement, whether that's in the next 3, 5, or 10 years, and wanting to really consider several different things prior to retiring. And there's others who are working with clients or family members who are helping plan for someone else's retirement. So as you're listening, I know that each one of you will be thinking about these slides and the information in a different way. In 2017, what is the reality of retirement? As I said, initially, retirement was all about withdrawing. It was about going away. It was about retreating. But these no longer fit with the reality of a modern retirement. So what is the new word that we should use to describe the transitions and the changes that occur when we leave our main employment to step into a new stage in one's life? Some have talked about it as a second act. But again, many of us, because work is no longer a job that you start with in your 20s and work all the way through to the same job, many of us have already had a second act. Maybe that's occurred at age 35 when we went back to grad school and started a different position. Maybe we shifted altogether and went into something different. Is it a third act? Is it the new unretirement? Is it about metamorphosis? There's lots of names that we can place on it, and I think part of how we name it for ourselves is going to be more about what it is that we want from our retirement than about what we're calling it. This webinar is not about finances. Well, we're going to talk about some of the financial ramifications that occur during retirement, and certainly finances play a major role in retirement planning. We often spend more time on planning our retirement budget and less or no time on planning how we're going to spend and live on that money. Today, we're focusing on the importance of the emotional and social aspects of retirement planning with the goal of achieving a productive and active retirement. It's interesting when you do research on retirement how often the websites that come up, the articles that come up, are really focused on the finances. And again, this is not to downplay how important financing a good retirement is, but there's so many other aspects to retirement planning that we often miss out on because it's not something that we are aware of or think has the same importance as the money. Certainly, there are lots of things that you should be considering when it comes to looking at your finances for retirement planning. And the reality is that very few people, and the percentages of people that have said in surveys that they feel that they have enough money to retire on or to retire in the way that they wish they could is low. So certainly that plays a piece, but today's webinar is not going to focus on that aspect. My hope is that at the end of this conversation that we're having, that you will be able to kind of answer and begin to ask yourself some questions about retirement. And this is important whether, again, this is your own retirement or helping plan for somebody else's retirement. So think about some of these questions. And again, this webinar will be recorded and it will be up on our YouTube channel. So you're able to kind of revisit these questions and these PowerPoint slides. So, have you begun to think about retirement? If you're part of a couple, it's important that you're discussing these things together. I think often what happens is that we think about these for ourselves, but we're not thinking about them for each other. We're not doing it as a couple. And really, you may be planning a very different retirement than what's really occurring. So what does retirement mean to you? And that's the first question that we need to think about. Are there things upon retirement that you would want to add or eliminate from your life? Is travel a part of your plan? And is this intermittent? Are you thinking about wanting to take a long sabbatical? Are you wanting to do this alone? Which is fine if you are a single person, but if you think about retiring and doing travel on your own, but you're part of a couple already, how does your other half feel about that? Where will your passions lie? Is being close in proximity to family important? Do you want to stay put or move? And is that about staying in the same state but moving to a different part of the state because you were originally in that part of the state specifically for your job? Do you want to make a move from the city to the country or reverse? And if you're staying in the same state or city, do you want to downsize? Is it more about your home environment that you want to change when you retire, or about the outside community environment? Right now, when you think about retirement, do you plan to work? Do you want to start a business? And how structured of a routine do you want? These questions that you ask aren't necessarily a one and done plan. Oftentimes, when you start planning for retirement, it's going to be when you are young, and that could be young being in your 60s to early 70s, and what you want in the first 5 to 10 years of retirement may be different than what you want in the next 5, 10, 15 years of that same retirement. So don't think that the answers that you have today, or that the answers that you start living as you retire tomorrow, have to remain static. These can shift, and you can continue to ask yourself these questions. So when are people retiring? Half of Americans retire between the ages of 51 and 65. And again, when we think about those who are retiring between those age groups, that is not that they are necessarily retiring from all work aspects. They are retiring from their main employment and often doing something else that's still bringing in finances, because of course they would not be receiving Social Security during that young age for the most part. So again, we're retiring earlier, but in retiring, we are not going to what we would think of as just the golf course or the rocking chair. As we think about retiring and we think about the planning that we need to do, there's really several buckets that this goes into. There's the financial, the social, the intellectual, the personal, and leisure. And so again, if you begin to kind of have a vision of your planning in these buckets, you're going to need to have something filled up in each one of these to consider. And for each of you, which bucket takes the most resources, the most time, and your energy, and is the most important, is going to be a very personal decision and choice. And we're going to talk about these in more depth. Let's think first, though, about what is the average life expectancy, and this is for 2016. So life expectancy in the U.S. is 78.8 years. The average life expectancy for women is 81.2 years, and the average life expectancy for men is 76.3 years. We have really 3 phases of our life. If we think about these as the first phase is our groundwork. This is our early school years. This is our adolescence. This may be our apprenticeship. This is your first really 25 years of life. Our main employment that often our schooling, our apprenticeship has led up to is typically between 25 and 35 years of our life. And our quote-unquote retirement years, depending on when you leave your second phase, is going to be between 20 and 30, and maybe even longer. If we looked back to that original slide where people are retiring between 51 and 65 years old, and life expectancy is 78, that could be 38 years depending on the individual. So don't we want to ensure that the latter 20 to 30 years are planned as well as what we did for our first 25 and then for our employment years? It's a lot of time that we're talking about. Years ago, as people retired, their life expectancy was not nearly what it is today. So their planning process did not encompass as many years. And not only planning socially and for leisure, but also what our funding was going to allow us to do. As we move forward and we think about how we're making decisions about our retirement and what's important to us, I think it's really important to understand a little bit about adult developmental theory. Now, this is not going to be a class on adult developmental theory. This is not going to be Psychology 101, but I think it is helpful to understand some of the things that make us tick, particularly as we're trying to determine how and why we may set certain goals and make certain decisions. And again, as you think about this in relation to the other people in your life that this impacts, a partner, a spouse, other family members, it's important to understand that what makes us tick may be different than those next to us. And so why, again, planning for retirement as a couple and impacting other people can become more complex because, again, you're trying to match two people's needs. So Erik Erikson was a psychologist in the 1950s and 60s whose theory translates today. And he talked about this idea as senescence. And he believed that during the later years in life, a person who achieved satisfying relationships with others and who could adapt to both triumphs and disappointments achieved an acceptance within themselves. And therefore, those later years were more peaceful, happier, and more productive. Gail Sheehy, who is a more modern day author and really has done a lot of sociological studies, talks about mapping new passages as we move forward through our adulthood. And she believes that there is a second adulthood period that really starts at age 50, and that this is now considered the youth of our older age. So age 50 is really the youth of those years between, again, 50 through 80. And so this is the early stages of that. Almost, again, our toddler years of our second act. This time offers a potential redefining of one's life possibilities. It's a time to become better, stronger, wiser. And she sees this period as a time of mastery, which again allows us to view retirement very differently than where we used to view it, which was a time of slowing down, a time of losing our meaning because we no longer did things that defined us. And so it's a really different view of how not only our older years occur, but how we use that time. And Abraham Maslow, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he really focused on growth occurring only after basic needs are fulfilled, and that as we age, we more readily achieve the different needs culminating in self-actualization. So again, all of us need food and water and warmth and rest, security and safety. And as we age and as we become more confident in ourselves and in our decisions, we then begin to accomplish and meet some of these other needs, which are then psychological and self-fulfilling, including a need for belonging, intimate relationships, friends. Certainly, these are things that often are achieved through work and the work families that we develop. And so we need to then figure out how do we maintain that need, because each one of these builds upon each other one. Then there's a feeling of accomplishment, which again, oftentimes in work, we achieve that. And if we need to continue to feel accomplished, to be able to have fulfillment, we need to figure out where does that come from. And finally, and this is not something that all of us achieve, but really being able to achieve our full potential, which includes those creative activities and a sense of self-actualization of what we want. And this, again, each one of these needs builds upon the other. So to be able to get into that level of fulfillment and self-actualization, you have to maintain those other basic needs at the same time. We can learn a lot about what we want to do in retirement by first examining our relationship to our employment and work. When we transition from work to retirement, we can lessen the stress if we understand what aspects of our work did we value, as it can help shape our retirement. So really think about how you ended up in the position that you did. And for some of us, we may look back at our work history and really not know how we ended up where we are and doing the type of work that we're doing. But I think for most of us, there is a reason that we chose the type of work that we're doing or that we moved into that work. For some, we chose a field to provide financial security. We knew that it was the field that would give us the most robust financial freedoms. For others, it was all about the intellectual challenges. Some, it's about the social interaction, that you wanted to choose an environment that was not solitary, that allowed you to receive your energy from others who are doing similar work. Many choose the field they're in because they like solution-oriented tasks. They like, at the end of the day, to be able to close the books, know that they checked off the boxes of what they needed to do that day, and they were done. For others, it's all about routine and schedule. that they chose the position that they're in and they chose the environment that they're working in because there is a level of routine. Others choose work because it's a creative outlet. Those who work in the arts or those who work in a marketing or those type of fields where it's all about being able to be creative and each day being able to look at a different way of achieving something. Some of us enjoy our work because it allows us to travel. It gives us new experiences. We get to meet many new people. Where again, others don't want those new experiences. They want to be in the same place with the same people and knowing what's going to happen on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Friday. For some of us, that sense of achievement, for getting up to a certain level, was the most important thing when we think about our relationship to work. And still others, it's all about the learning opportunity. These are not unique unto themselves. There are many people who could take 3 or 4 of these items on this list, and those are what makes their work successful to them. So it's not that you have to choose just one as you look at this list, but really think about from this list, what is the most important pieces for you? As you think about that previous slide and what aspects of work were important or meaningful, think about where they fall in terms of the following categories: financial, intellectual, social, personal, and self-actualization. Again, for those who wanted new experiences, who wanted continual learning, intellectual achievement, intellectual opportunities is really key. For those who wanted new experiences, who travel was so important, creativity was important. Those are really going to fit into the idea of social, personal, and those are the focuses that you're going to want to consider as you move into retirement and as you plan for that retirement. For those who that financial security of the position, even if it did not fulfill your soul, fulfill your intellect, but finances were key, then that aspect of financial security moving into retirement is going to be something that you too will want to probably focus on because it gives you peace of mind. So matching our needs and our wants to our retirement plan is key. Again, for those of us where finances were really a key aspect of who we are, what's important to us, what we're constantly thinking about, the ways that we're going to be planning for retirement is probably going to be looking at developing an early savings plan that we have started early in our lives, that we are very key on where we're at, what that's going to mean when we retire, how much we're going to be able to spend, etc. For these individuals where finances are such a key aspect of their personality and how they make decisions, planning for retirement probably will include some part-time work for at least a period of time, because the idea of not having that extra money coming in is probably not going to feel good for you. And for often those individuals are also going to be looking at downsizing, because as their money situation changes, they're not going to want to have the same responsibilities and maybe want to use some of the money that they're getting from selling a home to be able to fund some of their other decisions. For those where intellectual stimulation is so key, retirement plans probably will include going back to school, taking classes, starting a business, having some study groups through their community. You can begin to understand how who we are and how we focus in our work lives begins to impact how we plan for our retirement life. Those who have gotten their energy from the social aspects of work probably is someone who within their retirement plan needs to really be thinking about, where are my friends going to be? Who are my friends? Do I need to make a move to a community where other people have the freedom to do activities on a regular basis, where we can do get-togethers, where I can join meetup groups, where there's lots of clubs and opportunity for social gatherings? Think about how important in your work life and in your present life, if you're not at retirement age, is the idea of having hobbies and personal fulfillment and personal growth. Those individuals travel, having a hobby like photography and doing that on a more regular basis, and taking one of those passions but turning it into something that is of greater expanse is going to be key. Family time is often going to be more important to someone where that is a big focus for them. And it will impact then where you are living, where you're spending your time, if you have family that's in a different state or area than you're presently living. Those who see self-actualization as a big part of what brings them joy and fulfillment are probably going to need to incorporate things like volunteering, social service, social activism, following a passion into their retirement plan. Again, these are not, you don't have to choose one line, but you want to think about what of the categories are important and then what ideas can be incorporated into the plan that you put into play. And again, retirement plans can shift and move over time because we ourselves are changing, our needs are changing, our partners' needs are changing, our health is changing, and sometimes just our financial abilities change. Early on, if we are not drawing Social Security, we may have less freedoms to do certain things. But once we add that into our savings, and that starts coming in our 70s, we may need to, or we may be able to participate in some other activities or do some other things and move into a different part of our retirement plan. Again, as you're thinking about these slides, if you have questions, if you have thoughts, please feel free to write them down in the question box, so at the end we can kind of review. Crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Resiliency is an important trait as we move through retirement planning and retirement itself, as sometimes life does get in the way of a plan. Again, practical concerns like finances, what we thought things were going to cost, what we thought was going to be our ability to fund certain parts of our plan may not work out that same way. Maybe there's health issues that, again, create problems with the location that we've chosen. We need more access and easier access to physicians and hospitals. Legal issues come up. Death of a spouse or partner. These types of things, these practical concerns, can create havoc with a retirement plan that has been put in place. And that's why it is important to have some resiliency as we think about retirement planning, because with nothing in life is going to be so set in stone that things can't and should not be able to have some flexibility and some change. Relationship concerns. What our spouse or partner thought they wanted for their retirement may not be exactly what happens once they are retired. And you and them may begin to have some different thoughts about what it is that you want out of these 25, 30, 35 years. And so you have to then kind of come around to, how does this work within my relationship? Family and friends. Oftentimes, particularly as we move into our later 70s, our friends will make some other decisions because of their own practical concerns, because of their own emotional aspects, and who we thought we were then going to be surrounded with in a community end up leaving or passing on. And we have to think about, without them as part of this plan, does our plan remain the same or does it shift? Do we want to then find our way to develop new relationships or be in an environment where there is kind of built-in connections? Time management, how we balance time on with time off. And oftentimes we don't know how we're going to manage that until we experience it. For most of us, we know what it's like to be on vacation. We know what it's like to have a week off. But vacation and having a week off is only vacation because we know we have to go back to being on. We know we have to go back to work. And when we have that time off, but we recognize that we don't have work to go back to, that time off feels different. There is not the same sense of that I have to grasp every minute of this, because there's going to be a lot more minutes that I have. So thinking about time management and trying to balance that is going to be a key aspect. And often people are surprised at what they really in the end want and what is important to them about the type of time they have becomes different. And so again, it goes back to needing to be flexible and resilient with our plan. Emotional aspects. We often cannot realize until we're experiencing it some of the fears and anxiety that may occur with having this amount of time. Some of the fear and anxiety that can occur with not having money coming in the same way and feeling that there is only a certain level that our savings is going to cover. That can really begin to impact how we feel about our retirement plan. Having some more control in our lives, or if we feel less control, and particularly if there's our partner, our spouse, or others around us are making choices that are impacting our plan, we can have some resentments that we need to begin to recognize and explore. Because again, all of these will impact the type of plan we have, not only today, but what happens to it as we move forward. We need to consider all of these, and we need to be solving these issues as they arise. Again, we need to be having good communication as we work our plan, as we begin to make shifts in it, as we get closer to it, and then on a regular basis, be reviewing it. Communication is key with particularly anybody that we're going to be joining on the retirement journey. We need to be looking at our relationships. Again, relationships work because of the environment that they are living in. And when that environment changes, when we no longer just see a spouse for the evening and the weekends, and now we see them from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, we have to figure out how we continue to support that relationship, how we have our own lives within a partnership. And so really looking at those on a regular basis. The practical concerns, planning our day, thinking about our week, looking out into the next year, thinking about those finances, working with a team of professionals who may be helping you. And again, what you thought you were planning for is something different than the reality. And continually building confidence in ourselves, in our decision making, in our ability to find new experiences, overcome new challenges, attend new groups, find our way into new opportunities, And that comes from confidence, where we may have had a great confidence in our ability at work because it was something that we were doing day in and day out, and we were rewarded by the performance evaluation that we received, by the salary increases that we received, but we may not have that level of acknowledgement when we're now just on our own. And that's important to kind of think about as you as a person, what's important to you. Do you need somebody kind of giving you that boost, or can you do that internally? So when the best laid plans end up not happening the way we think they're going to, this can work and happen for several reasons. I remember in thinking about my own parents' retirement planning, and my parents are planners. We always joked that, it takes my parents, a year to buy a new TV because they had to check all of the consumer reports and make sure that it was the right purchase and all of that. So as they were planning their retirement, which is now going back 20, 25 years, they were very diligent in really thinking about all aspects of what they were going to do. And they had several plans in place. And then they went and traveled to Arizona for a family wedding. And they called us up, my sister and I, up on the phone, and they said, well, our retirement plan is all different now. We're selling the house in New York and we're moving to Arizona. We already bought land. Again, this is someone, and my parents took a year to buy a TV. And so for them, their best laid plans changed in an instant because they experienced something by coming to Arizona that they had never even considered as part of a plan. They had put themselves into a new environment, which when they looked around thought, this is something interesting. This isn't something we even knew existed for us that we would even enjoy. And 20 years later, they're still here and enjoying that aspect. So we can plan for months and years, and then things can change, not necessarily always because of a negative experience, but because of a positive experience. And they had to embrace that and also recognize if it didn't work out, they still had other opportunities. But sometimes plans change not for the positive. Our health situation changes, and often if we are in a couple, it does not change at the same time. And so one part of that partnership still has the capability of going down the same road with their retirement plan that they had, and the other person cannot. Travel is no longer an opportunity for one. And how now do you change for yourself when you still can, but you don't want to leave your partner behind and alone? So healthcare changes, and we need to put in contingencies, if you want to talk about it in that way, for such things. Caregiving needs. Thinking about that, again, there are lots of opportunity that even as our health care changes or our needs change, that it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't still achieve the same goals. We may just need the assistance of somebody coming in and helping with that achievement. It may be that we still want to be social, we still want to be doing activities, but we no longer can drive ourselves to that activity, and now we need to bring in perhaps a professional caregiver to help us get to the very thing that we had planned for. And recognizing that there are a lot of community resources that can be involved when some of those things come up, which doesn't have to completely disrupt the plan that you had put in place. So what are some of the keys to that successful retirement? As we're planning and as we are living our retirement, we need to continually focus on our health. The best retirement is done when we are healthy. That allows us the most control. It allows us the most options. So we never want to stop thinking about how we continually enhance our opportunities through our health. It's regular doctor's appointments. It's eating healthy. It's participating in exercise plans. It's keeping our anxiety levels low. So focusing on our health is probably our biggest key. It's also going to minimize the financial outlay if we have a healthy retirement. The other is not getting stuck on a number. And a number in several ways. One, a number in terms of years. I am going to retire at age 67. And 66 and a half comes and you have a new opportunity in work that is exciting and you've worked towards. Maybe you're not going to retire at 67. Maybe you put it off because you can still achieve something different. You're going to be able to provide yourself with that social, intellectual stimulation, but it's going to change the plan. The other numbers that we sometimes can get stuck on are the financial ones. And that's where, again, we need to be working with somebody to understand that if we make a shift earlier than anticipated, what does that do to the rest of the plan? We need to plan for the unexpected. And again, we always should have a contingency plan. We always need to be thinking about what's the best second option. And as we plan, not only thinking about where are we at today, but where will we be? There's a lot of people who, when they choose to make a move from their home during retirement or they're downsizing, that they're not only thinking about where they're at today, healthy, able to walk upstairs, but where may they be in 10 years? And so many people then choose a home environment that would allow them easier access, maybe living in a ranch style, for instance, so that they don't have to pick up and move again if something changes in their health status. The best key to a successful retirement is don't plan alone. Really think about, again, your partner, your spouse, your family, grandchildren. You don't have to plan for them, but you have to think about what you want with them and how you're going to do this together. It's important to set achievable goals. You know, we can have our unicorn retirement. We can have that one that if I win the lottery, this is the kind of retirement I want. But is that really going to be achievable on where you're at today with your own 401k? And unless you got the lottery, is your plan achievable with where you're at today? It's important to do an annual review of the plan, not only when we're living it, but as we're planning for it. And thinking about, is this plan, is my idea of retirement, does it fit today as it did when I initially began this? When I initially began to plan for this, and then be open to making adjustments, which leads to the last one, which is don't be afraid to take a detour. Oftentimes things present themselves to us, like I shared in my parents' situation, where Arizona and being out of the East Coast never even occurred to them until it was right there and they experienced an entirely different landscape and thought, you know what, let's just do this. Let's jump into this, knowing that if it doesn't work out, they still had options. As we think about retirement, as I shared, not all of us are going to retire and just leave the workforce. And one of the things that Synergy HomeCare offers, because we are nationwide, is we have a lot of people who are caregivers and are going into careers, second careers, third careers, and doing something that is giving back to others, that is a social, and becoming caregivers. So that may be something that down the line you want to consider, and think about how you could be working with others and still having a job and a career and something to do, even if it's part-time and flexible. Maybe you are the one who, as we talked about, are looking for a new career opportunity and wanting to start your own business. And again, consider talking with someone at Synergy HomeCare about the idea of opening your own home care office. So it fits in terms of thinking about, as you plan, looking at all different opportunities that are around us. I ask and encourage you to like our Synergy HomeCare Facebook page to keep you current on any upcoming webinar. We also have articles about caregiving and senior issues, family caregiving, etc. You can go to our Synergy HomeCare page and website, and you can be added to our email newsletter and be able to participate and get information about all of the upcoming seminars as well. April is a unique month because we're actually doing 2 complimentary webinars. Again, all of our webinars do have certificate of attendance available at the end. And next month, we're going to do one, this month, we're actually doing one on health benefits of pet ownership. Here is something too that, our pets retire with us and join us in that new life. Now they have somebody home with them much more. But we're going to talk about the benefits of pet ownership from a health perspective and what they bring in our lives. Be warned that there will be many cute puppy and kitty pictures in this webinar. In May, we're going to be doing a webinar on successfully planning and achieving your short and long-term goals. So as you've listened to today's webinar, and if you are in the throes of retirement planning, but you think, how do I even begin to plan? How do I set goals? How do I look at achieving these? This will be a great webinar for you to kind of join in from this particular webinar to really look at planning and achieving short and long-term goals and how you do that, and then how you, again, rework them as things shift and change. And in June, we're going to be doing a webinar on minimizing risk and enhancing independence with home modifications. There are so many things that we can do in our home environments to make them more safe, to allow us to use less energy, to do the things around our house, and to do the things that we are enjoying. And again, as life changes and we want to remain in the setting that we have grown accustomed to, there are things that we can do to adjust that without having to move. I invite you all to ask any questions. Type those into the question box, whether you want to ask a question or share a thought on retirement planning and how to enhance that plan process. Please do that, and I will give a minute here to see what pops up. I think what's happening is that everybody on the call has begun their own retirement planning. They are starting to text and call their financial planners to see where they're at, and beginning to answer some of the questions that we saw at the beginning. So that's why I think we don't have any questions, because I think people are actively planning their own retirement right now. Someone asked if they can share the upcoming webinar on pets with their veterinarian. Absolutely. I encourage anybody to feel free to share any of the webinars. Again, you can always go to the Synergy HomeCare YouTube channel, and all of these webinars that we have done will be on there. So we have about a year's worth of webinars now. Feel free to share that link. And when you receive a link, always feel free to share that with anybody in your circle, whether that's your personal circle or your work circle. I think it's great to incorporate those in your community that recognize how important pets are. Once you have completed today's webinar, if you would like to receive your certificate of attendance, please contact me at carlasutter@synergyhomecare.com, and I will send that to you and connect you also with one of our local offices if you want more information, and if you would like any seminars to be presented to your local community or clients that you are working with. Again, I appreciate all of your attendance and look forward to having you join us on the next webinar. And feel free also, if you do have a question, please don't hesitate to email me as well. Any questions at Carla, C-A-R-L-A, Sutter, @synergyhomecare.com. There is, someone asked about a future webinar on funding options for paying for home care services. That webinar is on the YouTube channel. We did that last month, I believe. So feel free to go onto Synergy Home Care YouTube, and you will see that and be able to watch that webinar as well. If you do watch a webinar on YouTube, you can then contact me and receive your certificate of attendance that way as well. Appreciate again all of your attendance. Look forward to seeing you in April 12th for our pet webinar. Thanks again. Bye-bye.